Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and thank you for joining us today because what you are about to hear is one of the most fascinating, shocking, and unbelievable stories in American coin history. A story that proves that even the smallest piece of loose change can hide a life-changing fortune. And today we are diving deep into the legendary 1968 D Mint Mark 1 cent USA coin. A penny that most people would never look at twice, yet in rare circumstances has been valued as high as an astonishing $27 million. And this is not hype or fantasy but a powerful combination of historical timing, minting chaos, microscopic errors, transitional metal mistakes, and collector psychology that together transformed an ordinary copper coin into a treasure that could rival lottery winnings. So stay with us from beginning to end because by the time you finish listening, you will never look at pennies the same way again, and you may even feel compelled to check every coin jar in your home, every pocket, and every old drawer, because the next one could be yours. And to truly understand why the 1968 D penny can reach such unimaginable value, we must first travel back in time to the late 1960s, a turbulent era for the United States Mint when economic pressure, rising metal costs, and massive public hoarding created the perfect storm for errors and mistakes to slip through the system. And the Denver Mint, which produced the 1968 D cent, was operating under intense strain, pushing out billions of coins at high speed to satisfy demand, often sacrificing precision and quality control. And when machines are pushed beyond their limits, mistakes are not just possible, they are inevitable. And in the world of coin collecting, mistakes are where legends are born, because errors represent moments when the system failed, creating unique artifacts that can never be replicated again. And the 1968 D penny is famous not for one single error but for a constellation of rare and extreme mistakes that, when combined in a single coin, elevate its value from a few cents to millions of dollars. And one of the most important factors behind this extraordinary valuation is the transitional nature of U.S. coinage during this period. Because although the official transition from higher copper content to more cost-effective compositions happened earlier in the decade, the late 1960s still saw experimental alloys, leftover planchets, and testing materials moving through mint facilities, sometimes accidentally. And when a 1968 D penny is struck on the wrong metal planchet, such as a bronze alloy intended for earlier years or even experimental compositions never meant for circulation, the result is a coin that defies official records, and collectors pay astronomical prices for coins that should not exist according to mint documentation. And when metallurgical testing confirms an off-metal strike, especially one with perfect provenance and unaltered surfaces, the value can skyrocket beyond anything most people imagine possible for a penny. And this is just the beginning, because another major driver of the 1968 D penny's value lies in double die errors, particularly double die obverse mistakes that create dramatic doubling in the lettering, date, and Lincoln's features. And while minor doubling is relatively common, extreme hub doubling is extraordinarily rare, especially from the Denver Mint, which historically produced fewer doubled dies than Philadelphia. And when a 1968 D penny displays bold, unmistakable doubling visible to the naked eye on inscriptions like Liberty or In God We Trust, collectors immediately recognize it as a once-in-a-generation find. And when such doubling is combined with other errors, the rarity compounds exponentially, creating a coin that becomes almost mythical in the collecting world. And beyond doubling, die cracks, die breaks, and retained cut errors also play a critical role in pushing values higher, because these errors show the physical deterioration of minting dies, sometimes producing dramatic raised metal formations, missing design elements, or distorted edges. And when these errors occur late in a die's life, they can create one-of-a-kind visual patterns that no other coin will ever share. And collectors are drawn not only to rarity but to visual drama, and the more extreme and eye-catching the error, the more intense the bidding wars become, especially when wealthy collectors compete to own the most spectacular example known. And this brings us to another crucial aspect of the 1968 D penny's potential value, which is condition, because even the rarest error loses some appeal if the coin is heavily worn or damaged. But when an error coin survives in near-perfect or mint-state condition, untouched by circulation, its desirability multiplies dramatically. And many of the highest valuations associated with the 1968 penny assume a coin graded at the very top of the scale by professional grading services, with pristine surfaces, sharp details, original luster, and no evidence of cleaning or tampering. And coins like this often come from old mint bags, forgotten hoards, or collections assembled decades ago before the true significance of these errors was widely understood. And one of the most thrilling possibilities surrounding the 1968 penny is the existence of meal errors, which occur when mismatched dies are paired together, such as an obverse from one year and a reverse from another, or even dies intended for different denominations. And although extremely rare, mule errors are among the most valuable mint mistakes ever discovered, and if a confirmed 1968 mule cent were authenticated, especially one involving experimental or foreign dies, it could instantly become one of the most valuable pennies ever sold. Explaining how valuations can reach the tens of millions, and equally fascinating are rotated die errors, where the obverse and reverse are misaligned by a significant degree, sometimes nearly upside down. And while small rotations are collectible, extreme rotations are highly prized, especially when paired with other errors. And imagine a 1968 penny struck on an off-metal planchet, with bold double die features, a massive die crack, and a dramatic rotation. Such a coin would not merely be rare, it would be unique. And uniqueness is the ultimate currency in elite numismatics, because wealthy collectors are not just buying coins, they are buying exclusivity, history, and bragging rights. And this is why auction results can defy logic, with prices driven not by face value or even metal content, but by emotional competition and prestige. And the Denver Mint's reputation during the late 1960s adds another layer of intrigue, because the mint was under scrutiny for quality issues. Yet official records rarely document specific errors, meaning that every new discovery rewrites what collectors thought they knew. And when a coin surfaces that challenges established narratives, it attracts immense attention, media coverage, and scholarly debate, all of which amplify its value. And another often overlooked factor is strike quality, because some 1968 pennies were struck with unusually strong or weak pressure, creating either razor-sharp details or ghostly impressions, and these anomalies can reveal misadjusted presses. Another form of mint error that collectors prize, and when combined with broad strikes, where the coin spreads beyond its intended diameter due to missing collars, the visual impact becomes unforgettable, and these errors tell a story of chaos on the mint floor, frozen forever in copper. And beyond physical mistakes, the market value of the 1968 penny is also influenced by modern collecting trends, because in recent years, interest in error coins has exploded thanks to online platforms, viral videos, and social media, where stories of ordinary people finding extraordinary coins ignite public imagination. And when a coin becomes famous, its value increases not only because of rarity but because of narrative. And the story of a penny worth $27 million is irresistible, drawing in collectors, investors, and even non-numismatists who want a piece of the legend. And this cultural momentum can push prices far beyond traditional estimates, especially in private sales where confidentiality and exclusivity reign. And another crucial element is authentication, because only coins verified by top-tier grading services and metallurgical experts can command these extreme prices. And the process of certification itself adds legitimacy and trust, transforming a curious object into a recognized treasure. And when documentation proves that a coin came directly from an original source, such as a mint employee's estate or an untouched hoard, its value can surge even further. And the 1968 penny also benefits from the broader fascination with Lincoln cents, one of the most widely collected and beloved series in American numismatics. And because millions of people already collect pennies, the pool of potential buyers is enormous, increasing competition for the rarest examples. Next, 1978 mint marked the 1 cent USA coin, a penny that most people alive today have seen, spent, or ignored countless times. Yet under extraordinarily rare circumstances this humble Lincoln cent has been valued as high as $21 million. And this staggering number is not based on fantasy or exaggeration but on a perfect storm of historical timing, minting pressure, mechanical failures, transitional experiments, and extreme error combinations that turned an everyday copper coin into a once-in-a-lifetime artifact. And as we begin this journey together, remember that the purpose of stories like this is not only to amaze but to educate, because the knowledge you gain could one day change how you see every single coin that passes through your hands. To understand why the 1978 penny can reach such an enormous valuation, we must first place ourselves inside the Denver Mint during the late 1970s, a period when the United States Mint was under intense operational strain, producing billions of coins annually while dealing with aging equipment, rising metal costs, and growing public demand. And during this time, speed often took priority over perfection, allowing small mistakes to multiply into significant errors. And in numismatics, these mistakes are not flaws but fingerprints of history, each one marking a moment when the system slipped and created something unique. The 1978 penny was struck primarily in a copper alloy composition, but this era was still haunted by the aftereffects of earlier metal experimentation, planchet shortages, and leftover blanks from prior years. And when a coin is struck on the wrong planchet, whether it be a bronze blank from an earlier era, a foreign planchet, or an experimental alloy never meant for circulation, the result is an off-metal error that instantly places the coin into elite collecting territory. And when metallurgical analysis confirms such an anomaly beyond dispute, collectors are willing to pay breathtaking sums for the privilege of ownership. One of the most valuable and sought-after errors known for the 1978 penny involves extreme double-die obverse mistakes, where the coin's design was impressed more than once at slightly different angles due to a misaligned hubbing process, resulting in bold, clearly separated doubling visible on the date, the word Liberty, and even Lincoln's facial features. And while minor doubling exists on many coins, true double dies are scarce, and dramatic examples from the Denver Mint are rarer still. Because Denver historically caught and destroyed many flawed dies before they entered production, making any surviving example extraordinarily valuable. Beyond doubling, die deterioration played a massive role in creating rare 1978 pennies, because as dies aged and cracked under relentless pressure, they produced dramatic die cracks, die breaks, and cuts, sometimes leaving large raised blobs of metal where the design should be. And when these errors occur late in a die's life, they create coins that look almost sculptural, each one visually distinct. And collectors place enormous value on errors that are both rare and immediately noticeable, without magnification. Another powerful factor behind the $21 million valuation lies in wrong pressures and misaligned strikes, where coins were struck with either too much or too little force, producing unusually sharp or ghost-like impressions, and when paired with off-center strikes or missing collar errors that cause the coin to spread beyond its intended diameter. The result is a dramatic visual statement that tells the story of mechanical failure frozen in metal, and the more severe and combined these errors are, the rarer the coin becomes, because the odds of multiple independent mistakes occurring on a single strike are astronomically low. One of the most sensational possibilities associated with the 1978 penny is the existence of meal errors, where mismatched dies were accidentally paired together, such as a Lincoln cent obverse combined with a reverse intended for a different year, mint, or even denomination, and although extremely rare, meal errors are among the most valuable mistakes ever discovered in U.S. coinage. And if a confirmed 1978 meal cent were authenticated by leading experts, its value could easily soar into eight-figure territory, especially if it involved experimental or undocumented dies. Rotated die errors also contribute significantly to the value of certain 1978 pennies, because while small rotations are collectible, extreme rotations where the reverse appears nearly upside down relative to the obverse are intensely desirable, especially when paired with other errors, and collectors are drawn to coins that challenge expectations. Coins that force you to stop and stare because something feels wrong at first glance. Condition plays an equally critical role in driving prices into the millions, because error coins that survive in mint state condition are exponentially rarer than worn examples, and when a 1978 penny with multiple major errors is preserved with full original luster, sharp details, and no evidence of cleaning or damage, it becomes a museum-level piece. the kind of coin that elite collectors compete fiercely to own, sometimes pushing prices far beyond traditional valuation models. Another often overlooked but crucial factor is provenance, because when a coin can be traced back to an original mint bag, a long-forgotten hoard, or an estate collection assembled decades ago, its authenticity and story become even more compelling, and collectors are not just buying metal, they are buying narrative, history, and exclusivity. The rise of digital platforms and viral coin discoveries has also fueled the modern fascination with era pennies, and stories of ordinary people discovering extraordinary coins have captured public imagination, drawing new collectors into the market and increasing competition for the rarest pieces. And when demand surges while supply remains effectively non-existent, prices can escalate rapidly, especially in private sales where discretion and prestige matter more than public auction records. The Lincoln Cent series itself amplifies this effect, because it is one of the most widely collected coin series in the world, meaning that even a tiny fraction of collectors chasing the rarest examples creates enormous pressure on prices. And when a single coin represents the pinnacle of rarity within such a popular series, its value can reach levels that seem unbelievable to outsiders. Authentication is the final gatekeeper that transforms a strange penny into a recognized treasure, because only coins verified by top-tier grading services and supported by metallurgical testing can command prices in the tens of millions. And once certified, these coins often become permanent fixtures in elite collections, rarely reappearing on the open market, further enhancing their mystique and desirability. The idea that a 1978 penny could be worth $21 million is not meant to suggest that every coin from that year holds such value, but rather that under the rarest and most extreme circumstances, when multiple high-level errors converge in a single, pristine specimen, the result is a numismatic unicorn, a coin that transcends its humble origins and becomes a symbol of chance, history, and hidden potential. What makes this story so powerful is the realization that many of these coins may still exist undiscovered, dismissed as oddities or spent without a second thought, because era coins were often misunderstood for decades, and even today valuable pieces slip through unnoticed, and that is why learning about coins like the 1978 penny matters, because it opens your eyes to the extraordinary hiding in plain sight. As you reflect on this story, imagine the moment that coin left the Denver Mint, unnoticed among millions of others, carrying within it the silent markers of mechanical failure and human oversight that would one day make it priceless. And remember that history does not always announce itself loudly, sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a coin jar, waiting for someone curious enough to listen. And this is why the 1978 mint mark D1 cent USA coin stands as one of the most astonishing examples of how errors and mistakes can transform an ordinary penny into a $21 million legend, reminding us that the greatest treasures are often the ones we overlook every single day. Next, 1989 no mint mark 1 cent USA coin, a penny that millions of Americans have held, spent, ignored, and forgotten, yet under extremely rare and specific circumstances has been valued at an astonishing $17 million. And this jaw-dropping figure is not the result of internet myths or exaggerated rumors but comes from a powerful combination of minting anomalies, undocumented errors, transitional mishaps, condition rarity, and intense collector demand, all converging into one extraordinary object that should never have existed the way it does. To understand how a 1989 penny without a mint mark could ever reach such a valuation, we must first step inside the Philadelphia Mint during the late 1980s, a time when the U.S. Mint was producing staggering quantities of Lincoln cents to meet everyday circulation needs, operating high-speed presses around the clock, and relying heavily on automated systems that, while efficient, were not immune to failure, and when production volume reaches into the billions, even a tiny percentage of mistakes can result in coins that are profoundly rare, especially when those mistakes escape detection and enter circulation. The absence of a mint mark on a 1989 penny indicates it was struck in Philadelphia, and while this alone is completely normal, it is precisely this normalcy that makes extreme errors from this mint so difficult to spot and so valuable when they are finally discovered, because they blend seamlessly into the sea of ordinary coins until a trained eye notices that something is very wrong. One of the most significant factors driving the immense value of certain 1989 no-mint mark pennies is the presence of double die errors, particularly double die averse varieties that display strong, unmistakable doubling on the date, the word liberty, the motto "I in God we trust," and even Lincoln's profile. And unlike minor machine doubling, true doubled dies are created during the hubbing process, meaning the design itself is doubled, not merely smeared, and these errors are fundamentally part of the coin's DNA, making them highly prized by collectors, especially when the doubling is bold enough to be seen without magnification. What makes doubled dies from the late 1980s especially rare is the mint's improved quality control compared to earlier decades, meaning that most flawed dies were caught and destroyed before mass production, so when a dramatic doubled die survives from this era, it represents a failure of the system that is statistically extraordinary. Another critical contributor to the $17 million valuation is the possibility of off-metal strikes, where a 1989 penny was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, a foreign coin, or an experimental alloy, and while such errors are incredibly rare in modern minting, they are not impossible, especially during periods of heavy production and planchet handling, and when metallurgical testing confirms that a coin's composition does not match official specifications. It instantly becomes a numismatic anomaly of the highest order. Coins that should not exist according to mint records are among the most valuable objects in the hobby, because they challenge established history and force experts to rewrite what they thought they knew. Die deterioration errors also play a major role in elevating the value of certain 1989 no-mint mark pennies, because as dies wore down over time, they developed cracks, chips, and breaks that transferred dramatic raised lines, missing details, or distorted shapes onto the coins they struck. And while minor die cracks are common and modestly collectible, massive die breaks, retained cuds, and shattered dies are exceptionally rare in the modern era, especially when they create visually striking and unique results, and collectors place enormous value on coins that show extreme evidence of mechanical stress, because they represent the physical limits of minting technology pushed to failure. Another powerful factor is misaligned and off-center strikes, where the planchet was not properly seated during striking, resulting in coins where part of the design is missing or shifted dramatically toward one edge, and when these errors are severe yet still include a visible date and enough design to identify the coin, they become highly desirable, especially when paired with other errors like doubling or die cracks, and the probability of multiple independent errors occurring on a single coin is extraordinarily low, which is why such pieces can command prices far beyond what any single error would achieve alone. Broad strike errors, caused by missing or malfunctioning collars, can also contribute to extreme value, especially when the coin expands beyond its intended diameter while retaining a full design, creating a surreal, almost melted appearance that instantly captures attention. And in the world of elite numismatics, visual impact matters deeply, because collectors are drawn not only to rarity but to coins that tell their story at a glance. Rotated die errors further add to the mystique of the 1989 no-mint mark penny, because while small rotations are fairly common, extreme rotations where the reverse is significantly misaligned relative to the obverse are rare and highly collectible, particularly when the rotation exceeds 90 degrees, and when such a rotation is combined with other major errors, the coin becomes a true outlier. A piece that defies expectations and demands attention. Condition is another essential element in explaining how values can reach $17 million, because even the rarest error loses some appeal if the coin is heavily worn, damaged, or cleaned, but when an error coin survives in pristine mint state condition, with original luster, sharp details, and untouched surfaces, its rarity multiplies dramatically. And many of the highest valued error coins are believed to have come from original mint bags, sealed rolls, or collections assembled decades ago and forgotten, preserving them in near-perfect condition while the rest of the mintage circulated into oblivion. Provenance amplifies value even further, because a coin with a well-documented history, especially one linked to an original source or long-held private collection, carries an added layer of trust and prestige, and collectors at the highest levels are not just buying coins, they are buying stories, authenticity, and exclusivity. Another extraordinary possibility surrounding the 1989 no-mint mark penny is the existence of meal errors, where mismatched dies were accidentally paired together, such as an obverse from one year combined with a reverse from another, or even dies intended for different denominations, and while these errors are vanishingly rare, they are among the most valuable mistakes ever discovered in U.S. coinage. And if a confirmed 1989 meal cent were authenticated, especially one involving undocumented dies, its value could easily enter eight-figure territory, contributing to the $17 million valuations discussed by collectors and experts. The broader market dynamics of modern coin collecting also play a crucial role, because interest in era coins has surged dramatically in recent years, fueled by online platforms, auction transparency, and viral stories of everyday people discovering extraordinary coins. And as more collectors enter the hobby, competition for the rarest pieces intensifies, pushing prices higher and higher. Particularly for coins that combine rarity, condition, and a compelling narrative. The Lincoln Cent series itself magnifies this effect, because it is one of the most widely collected and beloved coin series in the world, meaning that demand for its rarest varieties comes from a vast global audience. And when a single coin represents the pinnacle of rarity within such a popular series, it can achieve valuations that seem unbelievable to those outside the hobby. Professional authentication is the final and most critical step in transforming an odd penny into a multi-million-dollar treasure, because only coins verified by top-tier grading services, supported by detailed metallurgical analysis, and documented beyond doubt can command prices in the tens of millions, and once certified, these coins often disappear into elite collections, rarely resurfacing, which further enhances their mystique and perceived value. It is important to understand that not every 1989 no-mint mark penny is worth $17 million, but under the rarest and most extreme circumstances, when multiple high-level errors converge in a single, flawless specimen, the result is a numismatic phenomenon, a coin that transcends its humble origins and becomes a symbol of chance, history, and hidden potential. What makes this story so powerful is the realization that coins like this may still exist undiscovered, sitting in jars, drawers, and inherited collections, overlooked because they appear ordinary at first glance. And that is why stories like this matter, because they teach us to look closer, to question assumptions, and to recognize that extraordinary value can hide within the most familiar objects. Now it is time to connect the stories of all three remarkable coins together: the 1978 D-Mint Mark 1 cent, the 1989 No-Mint Mark 1 cent, and the previously discussed legendary error-driven Lincoln cents, because when viewed together, they form a powerful narrative about how ordinary pennies from different decades can share a common destiny of becoming multimillion-dollar treasures through a combination of chance, pressure, mistakes, and history. And when collectors analyze these coins side by side, what becomes clear is that their staggering values are not isolated miracles but part of a larger pattern that reveals how the U.S. Mint's evolving technology, human oversight, and economic pressures repeatedly created rare opportunities for extraordinary errors to escape into circulation. All three coins were struck during periods of intense production, when demand for cents was enormous and quality control, while improved over earlier decades, was still vulnerable to failure under relentless speed. And whether it was the Denver Mint in 1978 struggling with aging presses or the Philadelphia Mint in 1989 relying heavily on automation, the result was the same. Billions of coins produced rapidly, increasing the statistical likelihood that rare mistakes would occur, and when those mistakes aligned in just the wrong way, history was quietly rewritten. What unites these coins most strongly is the role of compounded errors, because while a single minor error might add modest value, the coins that reach valuations of 17 million, 21 million, or more are those where multiple high-level anomalies converge in one specimen, such as doubled dies combined with off-metal planchets, dramatic die breaks paired with off-center strikes, or extreme rotations occurring alongside pristine mint state preservation, and the probability of such combinations is so low that when one is confirmed, it instantly becomes a centerpiece of numismatic legend. Another shared factor is the psychological power of the Lincoln cent itself, because this series is deeply embedded in American culture, collected by beginners and experts alike. And when an iconic design like the Lincoln penny becomes the canvas for extreme rarity, the emotional response from collectors is intense, driving competition and pushing prices into realms that outsiders find hard to believe. And when wealthy collectors compete not just to own a rare coin but to own the rarest known example of a beloved series, price ceilings effectively disappear. Condition rarity also binds these coins together, because in every case, the highest valuations assume exceptional preservation, coins that somehow avoided circulation, cleaning, damage, or mishandling, surviving instead in near-perfect condition for decades, and whether they were tucked away in original mint bags, forgotten rolls, or inherited collections, their survival adds another layer of improbability. Because most era coins, even rare ones, are worn down by everyday use before anyone recognizes their significance. Provenance further strengthens their combined story, because coins with documented histories, especially those tied to long-held collections or original sources, command greater trust and prestige, and in the elite levels of the market, trust is everything, because multimillion-dollar transactions depend on absolute confidence in authenticity, composition, and originality. When these three coins are discussed together, experts also emphasize how modern technology has reshaped discovery, because advanced metallurgical testing, high-resolution imaging, and global communication now allow collectors to identify, verify, and publicize extraordinary finds faster than ever before, and this increased visibility has intensified demand, bringing new money into the hobby and elevating prices for the most spectacular pieces. Yet paradoxically, the stories of these coins also remind us that many treasures remain undiscovered, because even with modern tools, countless pennies still sit unexamined, dismissed as ordinary, their secrets hidden in plain sight, and this lingering possibility fuels fascination and hope, encouraging people around the world to look closer at what they already own. When the 1978 D, the 1989 no-mint mark, and their fellow era legends are viewed as a group, they collectively illustrate a profound truth about value, that it is not determined solely by age or material but by rarity, story, and circumstance, and that sometimes the smallest objects carry the largest potential, and this is why these combined stories resonate so deeply, because they transform everyday change into symbols of chance, patience, and hidden history, reminding us that the next great discovery may not come from a vault or a museum, but from a simple penny that someone, somewhere, finally decided to look at a little more closely.